Record to the
Good.
cloud. All right, everybody. If you have questions, please feel free to add them to the chat, and periodically we will answer them, or we'll just answer them at the very end, depending how it goes. But I do ask that you remain muted for the majority of the time, just so that we don't have any background noises or distractions. But at the end of the class, there will be a chance to unmute and ask your questions at that point as well. But I suggest getting a pen and paper because as I said, Stacy has a ton of information to share. So with that said, thank you, Stacy. Thank you, everybody, and enjoy the class.
Thanks. And thanks everybody for being here. Jen, I'm going to let you try and do the admitting now and help me with that. Okay. And please keep an eye on the chat for me so that if there's a specific question to what we're talking about, that we can answer that as specifically as we can so that things don't get dropped off. And also part of what we're going to do today is do some actual sort of case study, little treatment planning. So we will be unmuting and talking a little bit, hopefully throughout this segment. And I hopefully am going to be able to keep us on track here with timing. And let's see, where's my slideshow? There we go. So if you joined us last month, you know that we were going to talk about the Doctrine of Signatures today. And the Doctrine of Signatures is one of the ways that we understand the plant kingdom and use the plants to help us with remedies and figuring out what they are here to help us with. So the Doctrine of Signatures is used to describe a plant's virtues or medicinal powers with clues such as how it tastes or where it grows or the shape it is or the color of parts of the plant or the whole plant. It can be also things like the direction of growth and how it's rooted in the ground, for instance. And we're going to talk more about those details as we go through. So these clues help us determine the potential medicinal use, what organ system or body system that it might affect, and the different patterns of health and disease or imbalance that we can help to alleviate. So here are some examples, and you can see some very clear examples about how different foods can help us with different parts of our bodies. And you can see that down here where it's ginger, ginger oftentimes is used for stomach upset. And look at how it looks an awful lot like a stomach. So those are just some kinds of things that we're going to go ahead and take a look at today. And you all should have gotten a copy of the PowerPoint. And if you didn't get it before the class, we can go ahead and send that to you so you can have the pictures and things to look at more carefully later. So what do we look for? So again, we're looking for color. We're looking for shape. How does it smell? What does it taste like? The energetics of it being like, is it a cooling remedy or is it something that's going to heat you up? What kinds of textures are involved? Is it dry and scrapey? Is it prickly? Is it smooth? Is it oily? All of those things we're kind of looking at and trying to understand what it matches with our bodies. So certain kinds of tastes, for example, bitter herbs stimulate certain digestive processes. Yellow dock root is one that is used very frequently in helping people with digestion. It has a yellow oily root, and this corresponds to the yellow bile of the gallbladder. So that's the color that we could look for as well as that bitter taste. Plants with red and purple colorings often have an affinity for the cardiovascular system or the blood. Angelica is this beautiful pom-pom looking plant down in the corner here, And this is the American Angelica. There's also a Chinese Angelica, but this is the one that's growing in my yard. Has a very red, as you can see, main stem. And as the leaves are coming up in the springtime, they also have kind of a reddish vein in the leaf. Lamb's quarters, which I actually don't have a picture of up on this page, is also another one that has a very red stem, and beets, food coloring, that all very good for your cardiovascular system. So texture is another thing that we look to for understanding like constitutional matches. So plantain is very sweet and juicy and succulent. And it also gets goopy when you chew it or break it up and steep it and things like that. So that's something that we can think about in terms of that it would be good for a demulcent or an emollient. So we could use those for soothing mucous membranes, both inside and outside the body. Purslane, that's this beautiful, succulent, yummy, tasty goodness up in the corner there. If you've never eaten purslane, look for it in your garden. It often grows in sort of a dry place where there's not a lot of other coverage, and it's very juicy and it's really tasty. It's a great spring and summer herb that goes good in salads. It's really high in a bunch of different essential fatty acids, and they're actually doing research on plantain in cancer research because it's got some really good nutritional value to it. So we also look to shape and organ system similarity. So the first question for us tonight is, what else would this Angelica look to you like if you had to think of a part of your body or a part of your body besides the cardiovascular system? What do you think Angelica could also help us with by looking at these little diffusive ends that we have here? Does anybody want to put in the chat what they think that might match in our body system?
We had, we had a few folks answer lungs.
Yep, exactly. The alveoli in our lungs. And you know, the cardiovascular system and the lungs, they work together. So that's kind of an easy one there. So good job, people that thought of that. And there's more things that we could tie in here, but we're just going to keep going so we have time to really talk through some of the other pieces. So when we look at color, we're looking at basic color, like the red, blue, yellow, orange, just plain, straightforward, different colors, and they mean different things. White is usually lack, deficiency, cold. It can sometimes mean stagnant. White mucus is, a very cold condition in the body. If you have white mucus on your tongue, we want to look to thinking about what area of the tongue that might be on. Do we have a stagnant digestive system, which would show up on the back of the tongue? When we looked at colors, we're also looking for things like the hues of it. Reddish blue is more like stagnant, purpley, not moving so much, but bright red, if you think about that, if you see someone with really flushed red cheeks or really hot red swollen hands, you think of that inflammation and that active, more irritated state. So as we read the body and we're looking at the different areas of the face and the hands and the tongue, we're looking to those body areas and what's showing up. Is there purpley blue around the eyes under here? That can mean that there's some stuff going on. This area of the body is about our liver and somewhat about our kidneys. And so we look at the colors there that are showing up and ask other questions and look for other signs to sleuth out where in the body are things not showing up on. I'm just going to stop the screen share for a second because I have to show you what I just got today about a half an hour before the class. Been waiting and waiting for this. I just got it. It's Margie Flint's fourth edition of Reading the Body and Practicing her Herbalist. And this is my mentor Margie, and this is an amazing giant book of like all of her life experience and knowledge, along with many other people's. And I know I probably showed you the other edition that I've had in the past, but just to show you, inside this book, there's all kinds of diagrams about where we look for things on the body to match up what's going on inside. It's an amazing, amazing tome. And if you're interested about it, I can put the contact information so you can order it in the chat at the end of the class here. So now I'm super excited about it. I'm gonna reshare the slideshow. We were down to, okay, so let's look at some examples. So we've got St. John's wort. And the St. John's wort is fairly common herb in commerce. People, you have used it over the years for nervous system disorders. It was really well touted as a herb for anxiety or for depression for a long time. It's actually more emotionally used for depression that's more anxiety based. Its signatures, which are really cool to look at here, you can see the perforations on the leaf. They actually grow this way. And if you hold them up to the sun, you can see the light shining through the holes. And it's used for puncture wounds. It's actually a very specific topical for nerve pain that pokes and emotional issues that poke, that kind of pokey worry. Not so much that, oh, I'm so down, I can't, oh, what, but more that little stuff that's always kind of triggering you that way. It works well for that. It works really well for seasonal affective disorder by the yellow flowers that kind of indicates the sun. It's very much a topical because of those puncture wounds or perforated leaves, but also those yellow flowers. When you rub them between your fingers, that actually turn the oil inside those yellow flowers. This is one of the tinctures that I made. It was steeping from this fall. It wasn't quite done yet there, but look at how bright red that is. That was just pure vodka when I put those yellow flowers in. And in a matter of hours, it starts to turn this beautiful, beautiful pinkish red, and it can get really, really dark. So again, that's the signature that it's good for our blood. It's really, really renowned for cleaning the blood. It has pain relieving qualities, so it's helpful for trauma and wounds, and specifically wounds that are rich in nervous tissue, nerve endings, and small blood vessels. It's antimicrobial, and so it helps to move the lymph system and clear out infections. Which are really got a lot of those kinds of uses for a physical remedy versus the emotional pieces that sometimes are more well known. You want to look for it in dry, gravelly hillsides. Oh, let's see, do I have that? Oh yeah, dry, gravelly hillsides, meadows, old farm pastures. You can use it topically, like I was saying, as an infusion, a tincture. We can make it into oils and lotions and salves. It's great for areas like with that nerve pain. That if you have twisted a knee or something, or you have disc issues in your back, it's often put into those kinds of remedies to help with that inflammation. It's great for infections. It's really good for deep wounds and punctures. So like step on a nail, that kind of thing. It does have some caveats to it. It makes you sun sensitive. So if you're especially prone to sunburning or you have really fair skin, it's one that you have to watch even in the wintertime. And be very careful with it in the summer if you are taking it internally at all. Um, it's not recommended for nursing or pregnancy. One of the reasons that it's um, really good at cleaning the blood and because it helps facilitate the liver. And it can actually clear medications from the system too quickly. And that's why it's cautioned against so strongly in a lot of Western medicine with pharmaceuticals, because it can clear the antidepressants or the cancer medications or any other thing like that that they want to actually keep in your system for longer. It can flush that out too quickly, and so that's one of the big cautions there. And the other reason to be careful when people are on mental health medications is because it can impact the same neural pathways and the chemicals that are made in those organ or those glands. They work in the same places in the brain. And so those are the cautions around that. But boy, as a topical, it's super effective and it has a lot of great uses. You just have to be careful with it and learn it. Next, we have horsetail. So horsetail, you might have seen around the edges of like sandy lakes where it's just getting up into where the ground is. It grows in damp sand or soil. It also can grow in some really dry, nutrient deficient soil. So it's kind of got that signature of dryness and also watery. So it helps to balance the water and the solid. Between the joints, between these joints right here on this horsetail, if you pull that apart, not so that you pull it entirely apart, but if you just pull it so that it breaks there, it's got this bendy, stretchy connective tissue in it. And that's what keeps those joints together. And so it's really significant for connective tissue in a joint. And one of the reasons that it's that way is because it's full of something that we call silica, over 35% silica. And that's a mineral salt that actually is one of our basic building blocks for our tissues. And so it helps to build the connective tissues and the mucous membranes, and it's balancing out the water in the solids. Now, once you get inside of that, that tube is actually, the stem is hollow. So it makes us think to the parts of our body that are tubular and where we might have trouble with balancing liquids and solids. And that can be like in your ears if you're having sinus issues and your ears are plugged. It can help with the urinary tract. Matthew Wood talks about how those splayed branches look like someone with their hair standing on end, like someone with that's like just nervous at their wits' end, or they're chewing on their nails because they're just frazzled. And sometimes when our nails are weak and we are nervous, that's because we're missing that building block of silica, because silica is grounding and helps us be more solid in our bodies, and it helps your hair grow more well and your nails to grow thick and strong. So it's a good one that you can use as a supplement, more of a nutritional plant in that way. So how you use it is for topical use. You can make an infusion and you can use it as a skin wash, a rinse. You can poultice it on pussy wounds, and it will help stop the bleeding. I put it into oils and add it to lotions and salves and creams for strengthening tissues, like if someone has an injury to a joint. It's also used in a lot of cosmetics, in commercial, like mainstream cosmetics and natural things. Because of that silica, it supports the collagen production, and it can make your skin be more beautiful and make you look younger. So Internally, there are some brands of horsetail tooth powders out there. It's mixed into things like tooth powder. You can use it as a tea or a tincture. It's a really specific for generalized allergies, sneezy, runny, drippy. And it's one that I use regularly with lots of people and for myself. And when the ears are full, when someone's got sinus that's a sneezy, runny, drippy, like just water faucet pouring, and it's just like draining, 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 this is a really good one to tighten up those mucous membranes, kind of dry them out and astringe them and give them some tone. And that can help dry that up and balance out um, that problem. So it's real useful there. Um, when we're working with it with the digestive tract, it's really a good one for urinary tract issues and toning that tissue down there as well. The big uh, thing about using horsetail internally is that because it's made of so much silica, which are like little tiny, tiny cubes of, glass really, that it's sharp. It's sharp, sharp, sharp. And so you need to make sure that you strain it really, really well through a coffee filter. And most of the time I will do it twice just to make sure, especially if I'm going to give it to somebody else, because you don't want that to be that sharpness to upset the tissues that you're trying to support and heal. It can upset your stomach. So it's a must if you're going to put it inside your body. So um, horsetail, because it can be drying, because that's what it helps do, is that if people are wanting to have it on as a long-term, more of a nutritional support, you can mix it with other herbs that'll help to balance this out. And alfalfa is one that can be helpful in that way, or oat straw, because they both are also high in silica and those nutrients, and so they pair nicely together. So a couple of case studies that I think are really interesting to talk about for you is about bone density. I'm going to stop the share again so I can see you. So I have a long-term client who probably about 5 years ago, she had osteopenia, and she really wanted to do something natural for it. And so we put her on horsetail, and she was drinking horsetail tea. And actually, she was at the osteoporosis stage, excuse me. So she had already been diagnosed, and they wanted to put her on some pharmaceuticals. And she said, "No, I'm going to try this." So she started drinking the horsetail tea. And in the first year, they changed her diagnosis from osteoporosis to osteopenia, which is one step better. And they said, "Well, what are you doing?" And she said, "I'm drinking horsetail tea." And they said, "Well, keep doing it." And in 2 years, her DEXA scan was normal. She had gotten rid of that diagnosis and strengthened her bones. And to this day, she uses it. She drinks a cup or two a day, and it just keeps her bones strong. So that was a really a fun thing to be able to help with. And so there's a good example there. Um, the other example is a couple of classes ago, we were talking a little bit about tissue states. And following that class, I was texting or messaging with someone that is a friend of mine that was observing the class and is also an herbalist. And she just happened to throw out there, "Got anything for sinus or whatever?" And I said, "Well, what have you got?" And we went through her list of the herbs that she had gathered um, for herself that year. And I said, "Do you have any horsetail? Do you have any goldenrod? Do you have any, hyssop? What do you have in your cupboard that would work for you right now?" And she said that she had a runny, drippy nose, but I didn't really ask a lot of more in-depth questions than that. And that might have been helpful because she had the horsetail, and I don't remember if she had any of the other ones, but she was going to start with that. And a few weeks later, I happened to ask her, and she said, well, it didn't really work that well, and she had tried some other things. So that was one example where, like, I didn't really have a good idea of what her tissue states were like in full, so that we could have picked maybe something more specific, or maybe she didn't have what we would have wanted to use at that time. So the very next day, I had a different client come in, and she had the same kind of things. There was a sign of something going around, or she thought she had allergies. I'm not quite remembering now, but she said, what do you got for sneezy, runny, drippy? And I said, well, do you have any horsetail? And she said she did. And so we started her on some horsetail, and it worked for her because her symptoms and the tissue states were more matching the horsetail signature. She was soggy, boggy, and runny, drippy. She was so soggy that things were just pouring out. There was nowhere for it to go. So she needed to tone up those tissues, and the water was then able to kind of reabsorb and do what it needed to do. So about 1 week later, someone called me who uses a lot of herbal remedies and has a pretty good stockpile of tinctures in her cupboard. And she had a friend over, and she said she's having trouble with allergies. She's having trouble being in our house. She was having trouble with the allergies in this person's house. And I said, well, what kind? What is she, stuffy and dry? I asked those questions. My person that was just, because she's like, well, I was just going to mix up a bunch of the stuff that I usually take and give it to her. And I said, well, what were you going to give her? And horsetail was one of the things she was going to give her. However, this person already had a really dried out, hot sinus condition, and that horsetail would have aggravated her more. So even though she was showing up with the same symptoms, we ended up having her use mullein and hyssop to get a more moistening effect and get things moving in a different way. And that actually was the right thing. So as you're learning your herbs, looking at all these layers is one of the big things about putting it all together and making the remedies the best for you or forever who you're sharing them with. Let's see, what was the other example? Was that all of them? I think. Let's go back and look. Right there. Oh, the beautiful skin. Yeah, that was the about how they add it to cosmetics for women for tonifying their skin and helping the collagen. I actually put it in one of my skin lotions that I have that is real popular. I added it after understanding that it was used that way, and it made a difference. Okay. So, now.
Say, Stacy, before we move on, we had two questions.
Okay.
One was, what part of the horsetail do you use for tea?
You use the above ground part, the branches, if you will, the leaves. And Margie talks about how it's when you pick the horsetail, you pick it when it's reaching for the sun and it's happy. But once it starts to kind of droop down, and you will notice this as you get to learn the plant, that then you don't want to pick that one anymore. So, but it grows through most of the summer season, and it's easy to find stuff that's growing upwards.
Is there a brand of horsetail tea that you recommend?
Not commercial stuff. I pick my own. It grows so wildly around. You'll be able to find it if you can find it to forage in a clean space. If I had to source it, I would go to some of those places, resources that I talked about in the previous classes, like frontier herbs, mountain rose herbs, Star West botanicals, Pacific botanicals, Black Locust Farm. There's a lot of really good growers out there.
Yep, and if you live anywhere near me, you can just come and pick it from my flower bed because it's rampant.
So, what was the other question?
Those were the two.
Oh, they were both in the same. Okay, got it. All right, back to.
Oh, there might be one more. Hold on one sec. Can you just dry it and store it? And can you make a tincture with it?
Absolutely, yes. And I'm gonna just try and keep doing this while we're going. Let's see, we gotta get down to this one. We're gonna keep it there for a second. Yes, you can. And when you do dry it, I like to cut it up a little bit just to make sure you don't want any moisture left in those little joints. And you can hang it, but usually their bundles are so small, it's nice to dry this one on a screen, or it works good to dry it in a paper bag with the top open. And we're going to get to that kind of stuff starting next week. So the tincturing, yes, absolutely. It makes a really nice tincture, which is good if you're just wanting to use it for the allergy piece, because then you can just take a few drops of it under your tongue and it really goes straight up to help with that head relief. It's a good one for that. So moving on to yarrow. Yarrow is one of my favorite herbs. I use it a lot for different things. It's got many uses. Its leaf looks like a saw blade, but it feels like a feather. Millefolium means many teeth. So Achillea millefolium is its Latin name. It's known for its ability to heal deep cuts, as you see in its name, Achillea, like Achilles, who was a soldier and had a deep wound that was healed by yarrow. It was actually carried by soldiers back in the early wars on the continent and in the world to stop bleeding, to keep deep wounds from killing people. Loggers have used this over the years in the woods. Chainsaw accidents have been, helped to keep someone from having a really bad wound to a extremity, maybe losing a limb, by having yarrow and knowing how to make a compress with it and pack a wound. The thing about yarrow is Matthew Wood calls yarrow the master of the blood, because yarrow is got this intrinsic knowingness. It balances the blood. So if you're bleeding too much, it helps your blood stop. If you're bleeding too little, it can help facilitate the bleeding. So it's used for that kind of imbalance, that stuckness, or too much or too lacking. So it's used if you're someone that is going to begin your moon time, but it's not coming on and you're just ready to, you're just like, you're going to feel better once you can start to bleed. And it's just, you're tired and it's not coming and it's bothering you. You can drink a cup of yarrow tea. And that can oftentimes nudge your body over to help start your flow. It's contraindicated when someone is having menstrual flooding in the later years. If you can try it, and then if it doesn't work real well, then you want to move on to something else. So it's a great blood mover, blood reliever. It's great for bruises. It's good for aches and pains. It's good for spasms and cramping. Yarrow can move the blood in a bruise so that it doesn't get stagnant and turn into a clot. It can help with wound healing. It's It's an amazing topical, and it also has antiseptic and analgesic properties. So if you've got a wound, it can help the pain piece of it as well. It's really effective. Um, it's used for imbalances in our temperature regulating system as well too, or in our digestive tract. So when things are stuck between cold and hot, or stuck and moving, fever and chills, cramping, that sort of thing, yarrow is often used as a tea to help with stimulating, smoothing that out, and getting the system back online. Gives it a nudge. So we look for it. Again, this is another one that it loves the sun, grows in dry, fairly not super good soil, fields, meadows, um, on the edges of driveways and things like that, which is probably not where you want to use it from, in dry parts of your garden. It's a really easy plant to grow. It has a whole bunch of different cultivated varieties, which are you can use as well. They have similar properties. Yarrow is typically white when it grows naturally, but it can also pick up nutrients and things from the soil. So another natural coloring that it comes out of is pink sometimes, and pink yarrow is actually used as a flower essence and more for emotional issues of codependence, as well as all these other things that we've talked about using it for physically. White yarrow is used energetically if you are looking for more of that warrior protection that you need. It's a really good herb to carry with you just in your pocket in a little sachet or something when you're in a challenging relationship where you're trying to have good boundaries. It's very effective. So that's one way you can use it. For first aid, immediate first aid, you chew up the leaves and you put it on. And if it's a big wound that is open, you don't want to get those little crumbly bits in there, then you want to put it in between, a cloth or a paper towel or something like that, to keep the little crumbly bits from getting in there. But the juice of it is just immediately effective. Bigger traumas, you're just going to want to make more of that, whether or not you're chewing it all up by yourself, or if you're chopping it up and making an infusion and then making a compress out of that. If you didn't want to use the plant itself, you can just make the infusion and strain it, and then take your cloth and put it in there and just use the wet cloth with the liquid, and that works too. It makes a really good oil that you can use just straight like the oil, or you can put it into a salve or a lotion. Teas and tinctures for internal use, as well as I use the tincture oftentimes topically when someone's got a bruise or some kind of cut or something. And that can sting a little if the wound is open, but because of the alcohol, but right away almost that analgesic property of the yarrow will cut through that initial sting and just numbs it right up. So then we have calendula, which is another easy one to find and grow. This one actually you're gonna grow in your garden or in a pot. It loves the sun. It's a self-seeding annual, so this thing will propagate really well and make these beautiful fields of orange and yellow. It's got a very good rainbow assortment of yellow to red colored flowers, depending on the species that you get, but they're interchangeable. The signature for calendula is that it's a very sticky resin. It's so sticky that when you're picking it, your fingers just get orange and stick together. And sometimes you kind of have to shake the flower buds off of your hands and into your container. The signature for that it matches in our body is it's for stagnation and for dampness and it helps our lymphatic system, because our lymphatic system is the system that clears the waters of our body. It takes out the infections, and it works on um, antibacterial, antiviral, just gooky system things like that resin. So we want our waters of our body to be running clear and smoothly. So calendula is what we call a lymphatic herb, and it's got real strong antibacterial properties because of that. And the reason that it works as a antibacterial is not because it goes, oh, bacteria, and like has a property that kills it or something. But what it actually does is it sort of surrounds it and helps escort it out of the lymphatic system and out of our bodies. So it's really good for places where there's an infection deep inside. Herbal sunshine is a nickname for this plant, and so it's for places where the sun don't shine. It's for tissues that need clearing in that way, wherever you can think of inside your body. So stomachs, down there, um, mouth wounds, the lymph system as a whole for like infections. We've been using calendula a lot in the past couple of years with the COVID piece of, after the virus has passed and people are get hammered with the bacterias that make them congested. This is a herb that's been used a lot in the last few years by many herbalists and people to help with clearing that out. It topically on an open wound, it will help with clearing that pus out too. So if you've got an infection in that way, it's good. It's good topically. So you just grow it in your garden, and in the fall when it starts to get these little hard seed pods on top, they're super easy to pick and dry, and you can re-sow them the next year. So you can spread them where you want them to go, or you can just let them drop and make that patch right there bigger. You can use it as a tea. You can infuse it into oil again to make salves and lotions. It's a beautiful bright yellow tincture. You can use the leaves as a food. You can put them in your salads. After the yellow part is used and the plants are still viable, the green parts, you can take those and dry them, and you can put them in your winter soups as a pot herb. And you can get a lot of the nutritional value and lymphatic properties just from the stems themselves and leaves. Okay, so now we're gonna do a little bit of talking together. So let's see how this works. So we're often addressing more than one layer of a tissue state, constitutional state, and pattern, as well as organs. So let's apply this to a tissue state and to body systems. So we're going to think about a bruise. So think about initially what we talked about with color. So we've got maybe an initial bright red, heat, agitation, inflammation. You banged your leg really hard and you've got a big goose egg coming up on the side of your knee. And right away we're thinking, okay, there's a lot of blood going there. It's got heat, it's got inflammation. And then what happens? As the bruise kind of sits and coagulates and things get slowed down in there, it's going to turn into more of a blue purple color. And we don't want to let that stagnant blood sit there. We want to get it moving and reabsorbing. Stagnant blood can turn into something that we call bad blood. And you might have seen this in some older people, if you notice when they bump themselves and they can have these really dark bruised forearms, your skin tears, your skin gets fragile when you get older, not just on top, but down deeper into the tissue layers. And when blood sits, it's a place for toxins to build. So we're wanting to keep that moving. So what two body systems do we need to facilitate in order to get that moving and clear that herb out? And then a couple of the herbs that we talked about tonight would be really helpful to do this. And so my question to you is, which ones would you pick? And there's no absolute right answer. All of these could kind of work for different reasons, but I want you to start thinking about, what would I do with these choices? And the little bit I know about it right now. And then if this was the plant that I picked, how would I get it on or in and affect this bruise? So there's some resources for you for later, but let's go back to here now and let's chat. So Caitlin, I gotta figure out how to get to the chat here. Blood issues, St. John's wort, maybe, yes. Let's see, who else said something? I'm not seeing the whole chat. You can get the resources are on the last slide of this PowerPoint, which you got. Okay. I'm not sure. Can you help me with the chat, Jen? I don't.
Yep, I'm just answering a question that was sent to me directly, but we can definitely look at that. No, it's not a problem. I can get back to that person. Okay, so let's see. Really quick, can we go back to the calendula? Somebody was asking, is it good for gout and fibromyalgia?
It might help the gout, but gout is usually a hot condition, and calendula is kind of a warming lymphatic. I would probably go with something more cooling, like cleavers, gallium aperine, and or there's another herb that's really specific for gout, and it's called gravel root, and that is Eupatorium purpureum, and those are very good for gout. And what was the other one? Gout and what?
Fibromyalgia.
Fibro, that's got a lot of layers to it. That's a little less specific. The gout does as well too. That's usually triggered by food things or lifestyle habits and such. So those are the kinds of questions that I would flesh out more. Fibro can come from so many different layers that I wouldn't say this for that, for sure. Calendula.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yep, we had, so for the answer to your question before, we had, let's see, Lizzie said yarrow and calendula in a tea or tincture. Katie had yarrow and St. John's wort. And let's see what else. Maggie also said St. John's wort, maybe. Susan was yarrow and calendula. And Katie also offered maybe an poultice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all good, all good. So the St. John's wort could help with clearing the blood for sure. You could use it topically in any of those forms we talked about right on there. You could also drink a little bit of tea with it if you don't fall in any of those precautionary categories. Topically, usually St. John's is very safe, even if someone is like taking mental health herbs or things like that, because it's not gonna be that big of a dose to the system. So you need to sleuth that one out. So yes, the calendula for sure would help to move the lymphatics, and so drinking that and putting it on in both thing would be a very good idea. And the yarrow, absolutely, for sure. I would probably use every single one of those, and I probably would use the yarrow first and pair it with the calendula topically have the people drink a blend of the tea, which would be nice because yarrow can be bitter and a lot of people don't like it that because it is bitter. But if you put the calendula in there with it, that's going to mellow it out quite a bit. So, and both yarrow and St. John's wort move blood very well. Another one that we would use on a bruise, of course, if it was not an open wound, would be arnica. Arnica is a pretty main staple for that kind of a within the first 24 to 48 hours impact or something like that, strains, sprains, bruises. So yes, very good.
Going back to a quick question about the calendula, can you use the leaves and roots as well as the blossoms?
I don't know too much about using the roots. You definitely can use the leaves. When we get to organoleptics, so that might be a good one for us to try depending on the season, because the flowers are much sweeter and more warming, and the leaves are actually kind of bitter and a little bit more cooling. They are probably used more nutritionally than for that warm up that dark place where the sun's not shining. So you definitely can use the leaves, but they are pretty significantly different in taste. For the person that's asking about the internal scar tissue on the thyroid, that question would take a little bit more talking about specifics and how you got the scar, how long's it been there, what kind of problems is it causing, and looking, a little bit more at the other layers. So that would be a little bit a harder one. But as a general thought, Margie recommends something called serapeptase. It is a digestive enzyme that works to help your body get rid of extra like amyloid plaque. It helps your body. She says it helps you eat scar tissue or reabsorb it into your body. I've had some people really benefit from it, and some people not so much. And yes, in terms of Hashimoto's, that's got lots of layers to it. So we would want to do something more in-depth consult to talk about that.
Another question we had was, are any of these plants, aside from calendula, something that you can grow inside if you don't have a garden?
Any of them you could pretty much grow in a pot. I don't know how well they do like as a house plant, it would depend on how much sun and things that you have. St. John's wort and yarrow, they really like just full on sun and dry rocky ground, and they really need a lot of that bigger heat. So if you had a place on a deck that you could, in foot, or somewhere outside, then you could bring stuff in and out. That might work. What else did we talk about? Well, the horsetail too. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be worth a try. But they really do need a lot of sun.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. Does anyone have any other comments? We did have Katie earlier who said that she adds, I can't remember which one it was. Going back to the beginning, maybe Katie, you can reshare that again. The herb, yes, the yarrow in a bath for postpartum tears, which I thought was really interesting.
Absolutely. Yep. A very nice one, because again, it also helps with the pain. It helps with that skin that's cut deep like a cut. And calendula, very soothing. Exactly. Good job, Katie. And yarrow in a bathtub actually for achy sore muscles also a really nice one. You put yarrow and Epsom salts and some mint in a infusion and dump it into your bathtub, and yeah, that's going to feel really nice and relaxing to your muscles.
Okay, we have someone who is healing from a hip replacement revision. So I'm guessing a second hip replacement at that point. And sorry, I just lost my chat. Where did you go? There it is. With bone marrow edema, what would you recommend to heal, to aid in healing and with the pain? And would any of the herbs discussed tonight help, and how best to take them?
I definitely, well, is the cut healed? Is the incision healed?
You can go ahead and unmute, Valerie.
Yeah, talking would be great.
Sorry, no, it is not yet healed. The staples are coming out later this week.
Okay, so you depending on your doctor and how open they are for you to be monkeying around with that, with they can get a little cautious about us using things on ourselves on our own that they haven't recommended. Yarrow definitely would be perfect for that. And you can put it around on the soft tissue as well, like on your leg, not just the incision. And it's going to help with moving the blood out of there and helping that incision to heal nicely with less scarring, because yarrow heals from the bottom up like this. Whereas something like comfrey wants to heal quick, so quick that it doesn't always get down to the bottom. And so it's that's, so yarrow in an infusion, in a poultice, yarrow tincture would work. The St. John's wort is probably would feel good for pain. Like if you had a salve, that would probably feel really, really nice around. Just be careful on the incision. You don't want to soften it up too much. So it, heals more slowly. You want that to firm up and heal nicely. So the yarrow will help with that. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
You might want to think about horsetail as a proactive nutritional bone support moving forward, just as a supplement. Drink the tea like my one person did. So
yeah, I was very interested in hearing that because I have a similar connective tissue and bone issue.
Horsetail is great for supporting like cartilage and that, and Solomon seal. Horsetail, Solomon seal, mullein, and comfrey to a certain degree topically, they all work really well to support those your joints. Huge. I make a lotion they carry at the co-op. It's called Fantastic Four, and it has those in, and it's just really effective for. It doesn't just put the Band-Aid on the problem. It helps to heal the tissue and help the tissue to do what it's supposed to do.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Another question we have is regarding frostbites. What would be good for healing frostbite?
How bad is it? I mean, is it like skin open kind of frostbite, or is it just my hands got really cold and now they get cold all the time when I go outside kind of? What's the
skin open?
Yarrow, in more of like a salve probably, because that's tender skin. Calendula definitely. So my blend that I have that for like psoriasis, eczema, open skins, rashy, patchy, itchy, and wounds like this, and skin that cracks open in the winter, is got yarrow, calendula, mint, lavender essential oil, and peach tree essential oil in it, and I call it skin salvation. But I actually made it the very first time I made it years and years ago when I was vending at the farmer's market, was for someone that had a problem with a heat rash. It was really, really hot summer, and this was a person that just got that rashy, under her folds kind of thing. And so I made it for that. And then I had extra, so I brought it to the farmer's market, and this it was the one at UMD, which is in the summertime, they have like senior hostel. They can go and stay in the dorms and go to senior university, and it's really inexpensive for them. This used to be. Anyway, this older couple walked up to me, and the woman grabs her husband's arm and she goes, "What do you have for that?" And she holds up, and you've got the psoriasis, elbow bumpy skin and whatever. And I'm like, well, I just made this, try this, come back. I'll be back next week. We'll see what happens. When I came back the next week, they bought every container that I had because they were from out of state. And the skin had already started to smooth out. It wasn't red. The bumps were already looking like they were starting to decrease. So it was like, oh, I'm going to keep making this. This works really good. So.
That's awesome. So yeah, Maggie, that kind of answered your questions. What herbs would you suggest for eczema and psoriasis?
Yeah, I just caught that at the top of the chat. So it was a great segue to wrap it in there.
Indeed. All right. We had somebody ask, Monica asked about consults and how much you charge for them. Monica, I'm going to put Stacy's contact information in our chat, and you can reach out directly. So I believe, Stacy, it's just Stacy at Energy for Life Connection, correct?
Yep, .com.
.com. All right. So it's coming your way right now, everybody.
Mm-hmm. And, if you go on there, you can also sign up for the blog, which, gives you, there's all kinds of archived newsletters that have recipes and other information about different plants and things like that, and just opportunities for learning there. So
awesome. All right. So would you recommend the same herbs for, and I can never pronounce this, and my own child has this, seborrheic dermatitis as for eczema?
You did good.
Thank you.
I would try it maybe more as a rinse, like an infusion, make a tea. Yep, make a tea and use it more like in the shower, like a hair rinse, and use it that way. I definitely would use the calendula and the RO for that for sure.
All right, so everybody, I am busy typing in. So I've got Stacy's contact information in there. And now here comes my email address. So this, oops, and then I got it right. Okay. So this would be, if you're interested in receiving the PowerPoint presentation, which all of you should have gotten. I emailed it out a number of times. It was forwarded email. So if you did not see one from me, feel free to email again. Or if you'd like tonight's recording, that'll get downloaded probably sometime tomorrow. So that's my email in the chat. It's jgilbertson@wholefoods.coop. So you can go ahead and let me know if you're interested in receiving either or both. If you missed out on previous classes, I also sent out the last 3 recordings. So again, if you requested that, I did have a couple get sent back to me because, they were too large for that particular email address to get sent. So we can try to send them, separately, not a big deal. But if you missed any of the previous classes, send me an email. I'll go ahead and send you those recordings so you can catch up. And then let's see, next one I am adding is our website. So you can go and see what other classes we're offering. You can sign up for the future classes, which again, Stacy's class is the final Tuesday of the month. and we're going through June. So there's still a handful of classes that are happening, and they're open to everybody. So if for some reason you get a notification saying that you can't sign up for it because it's closed, shoot me an email, because that just means that I reached the limit that I set, and I can just up that number. So no big deal there.
No pressure. I added Margie's book title and her website also, in case anybody's interested in checking that out, because it's really fantastic. And next month, we are gonna actually go and check out the herb shop and maybe start showing how to make some things.
Terrific. So again, if you're interested in anything, it's a little difficult because everybody keeps sending me emails, and that's too tough for me to copy and paste and try to, it's a lot of moving parts. So it's way easier if you all email me directly to jgilbertson@wholefoods.coop and ask for that recording, because like I said, if everybody's emailing me, I can't copy and paste everybody and get that all done in a timely fashion. So I'd appreciate a direct email. So let's see. So Stacy's next class is in March, which is thankfully not too far away. And that's March 29th, again at 6 p.m. And we have April, May, and June coming up as well. So if you haven't signed up for each individual class, please do so, because I only emailed the registrations for that particular class. Signing up for one does not mean you are signed up for all of them, unfortunately. Eventbrite does not work that way. Anybody have anything else they'd like to offer, to chat about? All right, and put my email address in there one more time for those who might have missed it.
I have a question.
Go for it.
So I signed up when I signed up for the series, it said 9 classes, the beginner's herbalism. You just said we have to sign up for each.
Yes.
Okay, because I didn't see that. I thought when I signed up for all 9.
Oh, darn. Yep. Yep. So if you go to our website, that's the easiest way to just see the whole list of classes, and each one has an individual registration link.
Okay.
Like I said, Eventbrite, there was a layer of issues for why I couldn't set it up for just one class. It had to be multiples. So, yep, just go to our website, wholefoods.coop/classes, and you'll be able to find all of the next class links for Eventbrite.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, sorry to make it more complicated for everybody.
No worries.
And if there's anything anyone has missed from the previous classes that you'd like to have, again, email me. I got all the links. I can send them out to you either one at a time or all at once. We'll get it worked out.
Well, thanks tonight for everybody's input, and looking forward to doing more of this back and forth. We got through a lot of that information the first few classes that I think is really foundational. And now we can do more of the active learning, experiential sessions. And we'll keep reweaving those concepts through the classes as we're working with the herbs. And that's how I learned, that when I went to class, it was just like cold. They started talking about herbs and do this and do that and do this. And I think it's been nice for me to help start building that foundation first, because it will help you be more rounded and more accomplished herbalists. So thanks for being here.
Terrific. Yes, thank you, everybody. And I just realized I was emailing or typing all of that information to one particular person. So now it is available for everybody. Oh, gosh, technology, you gotta love it. All right, everybody, thank you again so much for taking part in tonight's class. and for your participation. And thank you, Stacy, for, again, a wonderful presentation and all of that terrific information. You're such a fountain of knowledge. It's really incredible to watch you come up with all of those Latin names and all of your information. It's really terrific.
Well, I have
So with that
really
said,
good teachers, and learn the Latin names because I didn't start out learning the Latin names at first, and I had to play catch up. And now, so I'm like, now you just start from the get-go. You got to know them by their proper name so that you get to know them well.
lovely. Well, all right, everybody. Thank you so much again. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday evening, and we will see you a month from now.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.